So you want to be forgiven. So you want to be able to forgive others. There's two things that I completely believe that are stopping you from being able to do those two things. That's shame and that's guilt. The two of them combined will not allow you to forgive others and will not allow you to forgive yourself. Why? Being able to forgive yourself is the key to unlocking and letting go of shame and guilt. As long as you hold on to shame and guilt, you can't forgive yourself. God has forgiven you. Let me repeat that again because I don't know if people really understand that. God has forgiven you. He's forgiven you for past. He's forgiven you for present. He's forgiven you for future sins. But you don't forgive yourself because you believe that what you did is unforgivable. I don't know if you've ever brought in shame to your family. I have definitely disappointed my mom and my dad, and this is why I'm able to talk about this video with such passion, because I battle with this. And I believe some people have daily battles. I think you have daily battles, but you win the war. Every day is not easy. For me, I know that Jesus forgave me. The whole reason why Jesus came and died was that we could be forgiven, and through his death, we could receive forgiveness. Because other than that, you had to do all these things. There was always a wage. There was always something you had to pay. There was some action you had to do to gain the forgiveness of God, and that's no longer. Now, I believe you have to believe that. Because when you believe that and you believe you're forgiven, you don't hold on to shame and guilt. And you don't hold on to shame and guilt towards other people. Because you were forgiven, so why can't you forgive your brother? Why can't you forgive your sister? Why is it every time you get on the phone and maybe talk to this person who did you wrong, you still hold it against them as if it just happened? I know this because I battle with it. You see, when you know you're loved and you believe you're loved, you can show love. This is not an easy concept. It's not saying, listen, just forget what they did to you. Just forget what they did and forgive them and move on. That's part of it. But I believe there's a deeper reason why you can't just forgive and let go. And I believe that's because you have unforgiveness inside of yourself, that you have not forgiven yourself. Everybody makes mistakes, guys. No one on this planet is perfect. And that's why it's so important that we understand that Jesus has forgiven us. And we hold tight onto that, because when you really believe you're forgiven, it's so much easier to give that same forgiveness to others. And in my past, man, I've had people do me wrong. I've done people wrong. And they may have not apologized to me. They may have just acted like nothing has happened or acknowledged the situation at all. And I've done the same thing. I've done that exact same thing. Just act like nothing has happened and we both just go our separate ways. And although I do believe in apologizing to someone that you did wrong or receiving that apology, but even when somebody says sorry, sometimes that wound is still so tender that an apology just isn't good enough. Have you heard that before? Man, the apology is just not good enough. And that's when I realized, for me, dude, you haven't forgiven yourself. If you forgave yourself, it would be no problem for you to forgive others. But until you learn to forgive yourself, you will then forgive others. Why do we have such shame and guilt and hate towards ourselves sometimes? You ever wonder that? You know, I think about it a lot, because when I really analyze myself, there's a few people that I haven't fully forgiven yet. And listen, that's not easy to admit that on camera. And it's not easy to admit because I know and I believe in my heart that God has forgiven me, and I truly want to give that same forgiveness to others, but that pain is still there. That pain of, gosh, man, like, how you do me like that? You know, how you do me like that? But yet, in that same mind, I also know that I've done others like that. So why can't I get over this? That's why, going back to the beginning of this video, I said, Jesus said before, pick up your cross daily and follow me. When you pick up your cross daily, you're picking up that old you that needs to be put to death. The cross represented death. And through his death, we receive life, right? Every day we're picking up that part that we need to nail to the cross. And when it's put to death, we can live. That shame, that guilt, that needs to get put on the cross. And it needs to be put to death. Sometimes you got to pick up that cross, like he says, daily. So I believe Jesus knew that we would battle with this through our lives. But the good thing is we battle, but Jesus has already won the war. We're truly battling for a better life. See, a life of forgiveness is a better life. A life of forgiving others is a better life. Shame and guilt are heavy, heavy burdens to hold on to. It's not something light, man. When you can't forgive somebody, there's a rottenness that starts to grow inside of you. You ever meet somebody that's just so rotten? They didn't just get there. This is a constant life of repetition. And what did they choose to repeat on and on and on? Unforgiveness. That unforgiveness rolled up into a big ball, and we call it rotten, because you've become rotten. You've become cold. You don't have that love in you anymore. See, that's the dark side of shame and guilt. You do something bad, you apologize, or maybe you don't apologize, but you apologize to God, and you know he's forgiven you, yet you don't forgive yourself. Now, with you not forgiving yourself, allows you to now not forgive others. You not forgiving others starts to build a darkness inside of you. And once that darkness is grown, we call it bitter. And you no longer are operating in love, you are bitter. And bitterness translates to all parts of your life. I'm sorry, I don't meet too many people who are bitter and then all of a sudden one day just on, happy, go lucky, charismatic. It doesn't happen, man. Once bitterness grows inside of you, it takes over your whole personality. And that's the darkness of it. And that's the part that I want to escape from. And that's why I'm making this message to you guys, because I feel that there's a lot of unforgiveness in this world. And I truly think it's because, for one, people don't understand that God has forgiven them. And for two, since they don't understand God has forgiven them, they cannot forgive themselves. And forgiving yourself may be something that you need to pick up daily, like your cross, and put it to death. Put that shame and guilt to death. You see, not forgiving yourself is the root to a lot of these issues. You know, shame and guilt is the product of unforgiveness. It is not the root. The root is unforgiveness. Shame and guilt are the fruits of unforgiveness. And ultimately, when those fruits are ripened, they form bitter fruits. And God can do anything, and God works with everyone. We cannot judge others. We can only judge ourselves and understand what we are going through, you know? But I don't want to become so bitter and so cold to God's forgiveness and love that life flies by me and I just don't forgive anyone and I grow bitter to them. And ultimately, I have this, in a sense, a self-hatred inside of myself. Because if I can't forgive myself, how can I truly love myself? You ever think about that? You ever think about how difficult it may be to love yourself if you can't forgive yourself? I don't want to live a life like that. I want to forgive. I want to forgive and let go and give it to God. I want to forgive myself because holding on to unforgiveness is a heavy burden. And God says, cast your cares on me because I care for you. So if you're dealing with unforgiveness, first thing I got to say is, God, man, God loves you so much and God forgave you. So practice accepting that love daily. You know, maybe you got to write yourself a love letter. Maybe you have to say some affirmations to yourself all the time. Maybe you got to really just take a cold look in the mirror and really say, I love you. Because God loves you. You need to love yourself. We need more self-love. Because when you love yourself, it's easy to love others, man. But when you have bitterness towards yourself, it's easy to be bitter towards others. You see, whatever you hold on inside is what comes out of you, whether you like it or not. Whatever you hold on inside of you shows on the outward. Man. So listen, forgive yourself because you are forgiven. Yeah.